minerals, vitamins, nutritional oils, and omega-3 and fish oils. Additionally, our products include heart health supplements, immune system boosters, and male and female health support. Call us today at 345-640-2647. That's 345-640-2647. You could also reach us at 345-949-2647. That's 345-949-2647. We look forward to seeing you from 9 to 5 on Monday through Thursday and from 9 to 3 on Fridays at 209 Walkers Road, Georgetown.
Are you looking for real talk on love, marriage, parenting, and relationships? Join us every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. for Family Matters, a brand new show on Praise 87.9 FM. Hosted by Dwayne Uter, alongside Dr. Cheyenne O'Connor, a licensed clinical psychologist and relationship expert. We'll tackle the real issues that families face. Straight talk, expert advice, and live call-ins. Got questions? We've got answers. Tune in and let's build stronger families together. Family Matters, this and every Thursday on Praise 87.9 FM.
It's another Thursday morning. It's Family Matters. This morning we're dealing with the
matter of the family.
You know, sometimes it even seems insignificant.
Yeah.
Well,
What does?
sometimes society makes it look insignificant.
Okay.
Yeah.
The matter of men's needs.
Okay.
And I remember some time ago, we were in a situation like this, and I relayed my story of growing up as a little boy. You're on the road, you're going to the country. You come from the country, so?
Yes.
Alright. So if you're on Canil walking in the country, and both of you need to use the bathroom, I'm sure your mother or somebody would say, find a nice piece of bush for the boy. I said, go relieve yourself over there and tell the girl to hold it until she find a bathroom. Isn't that how?
Yeah. In other words, morning everybody. Morning everybody, and welcome to Family Matters here in the Cayman Islands. So the priority over many years now. The way we treat boys as against girls is completely different.
Boys are supposed to be tough.
Yes.
They're not supposed to have any feelings. They're not supposed to have any emotions. If you cry, you're a girl.
Right. And it has lasting detrimental effect on the quality of life.
Yes.
Both for that boy when he becomes man, and for the person that he will marry, or the family that he will be responsible for. And to a large extent, some of the major challenges that we're seeing in family life, and some of the struggles, some of the discontent, some of the pains, family pain. Maybe one day we can talk about family pains. Some of the pains that we have seen in family come, if you trace them, they go right back there. Yes, right back there. To the childhood orientation, childhood attachment, childhood treatment, childhood trauma, childhood neglect. There's no question, for example, if we notice nowadays that there is an increased level of higher education among women than they are among men, which never used to be, because early on parents used to prioritize their boys and send their boys to college, right? But that has shifted a couple of years ago to where if the parent is unable to provide 2 lunch money, right? They send the girl, and the boy is kept home. I remember as a boy growing up in the country, the girls would go to school sometimes.
I didn't know that I could like my sister. I didn't know I could like my sister.
You could like, yes.
I didn't know. Like a really. Why? Mm-hmm. Because for the same reason.
She got preferential treatment.
Hey, okay. I go to school with him girl bag.
Yes, it's a lot that our men and boys deal with.
Yes.
Emotionally, with that's perceived preferential treatment, and I believe it's an outgrowth of the fact that we thought that the women needed support because there was that dependence on the male to provide for the female. And so when we had girls, we didn't want them to be disadvantaged. And so they paved the way for the girls. But we knew it's like the belief was that the boys would make it. They had no doubt that the boys would make it. The men would make it. But there was some doubt for the women, the female, who were perceived to be the weaker. Yes, that's the word. So they provided support, but it's created an imbalance. And so men were taught, boys were taught, socialized to hide their emotions, to be strong in silence, and to just forge ahead because, it's the expectation. And so it created a lot of emotional baggage.
Yep. Yes.
And we see that quite often played out in families.
Mm-hmm. And it turned around and hurt the same woman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right, the number to call, because this is going to be a very exciting discussion this morning. Number to call is 945-9029. That's 945-9029. Or you can send me a WhatsApp or a text. I'd rather for you to call. But you can send me a WhatsApp or text to 345-517-1122. That's 345-517-1122. This morning we're dealing with the hurts of men.
Yeah. So one of the as we set the stage, then we're reminded, our listeners, that the month of June we focus on the health of men and in particular this morning the emotional health of men. Because that's a piece that we never normally talk about. There's a
by the way, I have a belated Father's Day.
Oh,
see, thank you. Remember that?
We didn't remember that. We don't remember. I was talking to some men and said, Father's Day is neither here nor there to me. And for most of us as men, it's not huge for us.
It's not huge.
It's not huge.
It should be.
It should be, but we don't.
It should be, but we're not cultured.
Yeah, we're not cultured. We don't value it as such.
We need to flip the paradigm.
Yes,
like from February we start hearing about Mother's Day.
Yeah, it should be. But the challenge with us
because it plays into the emotional health of men.
Yes, the challenge with us as in our society is that I firmly believe that men are not fully understood. Yeah. There's more knowledge, more common knowledge of women than there are of men. And I believe one of the reasons we have so many challenges as it relates to men. I also feel that a number of that among women struggle to fully understand men in general.
They think they know.
Yes, there's a lot about the psyche of a man. There's a lot about the mental state of a man. There's a lot about the orientation of a man that is not known. There are some popular things about men that women tend to know, but there are lots of other unknown pieces. Because men are not necessarily studied. Women are much more studied. Women are much more studied than men are. And so I like a term Sophia used a while ago. Men being strong in silence, for example. That's an interesting terminology. Yeah. So for example, people will know the needs of a woman, right? We can spit out the needs of a woman. If you ask the average woman, what are the needs of men, right? They probably come to sex and food are the two things that will run off the top of their lips, and it is not. That is far cry.
It's not even the number one need.
Yeah, it is far cry. It is far cry.
I'm sure a lot of women are gasping right now.
Yeah, even Sophia is gasping.
There are a lot of needs that men have, and we want to go through some of them, the emotional needs, and also some areas that I would love for our listeners to know about men and how men function, how men think, how men love, why men behave the way they do. Because if we have that background understanding, it will be helpful. And also how we understand our boys, right? Because there's the idea from boys to men. What we have in what we do as boys, right, will come all the way over into a man. If you have a girl and a child and a boy child, they are not the same. You don't treat them as the same because they're not the same, really. Right. They're and some people say no, they're not the same. Their brains are wired differently, right? There's none that is more important than the others or superior than the others. No, but they are two different individuals
and to be treated
and to be treated with respect. Each of them have their own level of respect. So, for example, understand, one of the big needs of men, and if you talk to any man in any group, married men, single men, big needs, apart from take sex and put it out, and take food and put it aside. Big need for men is respect.
Right? Yes.
That's number one.
That comes up so often.
Yes.
And you ask the question, what do you mean by respect? Yeah. This is the challenge. A man needs to feel that in his home he is valued. He means something. He is worthwhile. He's treated as such, not just I know his value, but you don't. But he needs to be treated as such. And one of the things that that needs to be expressed here is that men, and I keep saying this, the man's brain tend to be literal. We tend to function very literally, right? Very, very literally. We are based on evidence. Show me the evidence, right? We based on reason, logical thinking, evidence-based. That's how we concrete. So, for example, we function well when we can see things. Okay, when we can see things. No, very literal. What does that mean? It means, therefore, if you are going to say that you respect me, show me. That's when you communicate that to the man, right? Don't say, yeah, I respect. No. The man will feel respect, not when you tell him so, but when you show him so. Because he's literal, he's visual, right? He's concrete. Yeah. So when you are relating to men, you really have to understand that language, right? To demonstrate visual, concrete specificity. Show me that I am respected. And when I see the evidence that I'm respected, then I begin to feel respect.
Right. And then there are those who also want to see and hear.
Yes. Back it up. Right.
Yes.
Back it up.
Very important. You just said something that was very important. Because if the woman says something, however she says it, but her face has a different expression.
Yes.
From kindness.
Yes.
Then I'm sure the man will take a different meaning to that.
Yes.
Will take a different meaning altogether to that. And he might be internalizing something. He might not say anything.
Yeah. He goes off the visual cue.
Yeah. The visual cue just confuses him.
Yes, and that's understandable, whether male or female.
Yeah.
Because you would not be communicating the same thing as your words with your body language and facial expression.
Yes, yes.
So it's just a general thing, not just men who get confused with mixed messages. But what I want us to look at, though, is how do we show respect? It's one thing to say, show me respect, but how do we do this? So it is in using words to build up and not tear down. You might not have the best husband out there. He might not be handy with his hands. He might not be the brightest bulb in the box. But you must, that person has some strengths. And you want to focus on those strengths. They may be a hard worker. They just go to work and they work and they work and they work, because in their mind, that's how they provide for their family. So since that's his strength, tell him, I really appreciate how hard you're working to provide for us.
You may not have the best husband out there, but it might be the best husband for you.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Yes. So if you're just joining us, we're continuing the trend of the month of June, looking at men's health. And in particularly this morning, we're looking at the emotional needs of men. How can we make our men happier, right, in the home? And one of the big needs we're looking at is the need for respect. And Sophie just mentioned the point about also saying it, not just doing it. If you come back to the doing, for example, again, this is so significant, the idea of understanding the culture from which a man comes, because based on his orientation and based on his culture, based on how he grew up, right, what he may value as respectful, somebody may think, that's not necessarily, what he considers to be very disrespectful, somebody may think, no, that's not disrespectful. Right. For example, a man may marries and he expects, if I'm valued and respected, if my wife prepares a meal, she will put the dinner on the table and set the knife and fork and say, "Babe, your dinner is ready." And so he comes, he sees that, and he feels very respected by that. Right?
Because that's what his daddy got.
That's what his dad got. That's right. Comes back to the point of orientation. So even as a boy growing up in the home, he sees, okay, that's how you show respect to a man. Or he may find his clothes washed and neatly folded away, put in his drawer, or something like that. And he sees those cues as respect, all right, as how you treat me with respect.
That's how you treat a good man.
That's how right. So he carries those as symbols, right, of deep honor and deep respect.
And sometimes it's not a lot.
No, it is not.
You just need to know your man.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might not want your clothes folded.
Exactly.
Yes. So yeah, every man wants it.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
But I'm saying, don't know your man through your girlfriend.
Right.
Because she might be telling you about her man.
Yeah, right.
Two different.
Right, precisely.
Know your man through him.
Through him, yes. Yeah. It is, and that is what, and that is why it is so important to get a good knowledge of the person that you marry, their childhood experience, what that was, right? Because if they grew up in a home like that, then they are attuned to the cues that indicate what honor is and what respect is.
And if you're a woman who don't believe, you grew up in a home where your mother would not have done those things, and you said, "No, I'm not doing that for no man."
Right.
Then you would know from earlier that this is going to be a bumpy ride.
That's correct, and be able to put that out there early.
Yeah,
right?
Early.
Put that out
and
there.
that is something that you could negotiate.
Yes.
And reach compromise on. Because
some things you can't, but
yes, and then it's up to the couple to decide what is not negotiable. Yeah. Because the reality is, we grew up seeing these things done for our fathers. Yes, my mom used to set the table and stuff like that, and and so a lot of men from my culture expect the same. However, she never worked outside of the home. She worked in the home.
Right.
And so it became a part of her routine. It becomes challenging when you work outside of the home and your hours are not compatible. And so we have persons who help to give care to our children and do household activities, chores, to make our situation more bearable. So we could negotiate and say, okay, we could get somebody to wash and prepare the clothing and so on. So it doesn't become burdensome on the female or the wife, this partner, to be preparing, and then the person feels unappreciated because so much is expected.
You are heading in a very, very practical direction. Here's what I would add to that. And this is where sometimes the danger lies. Okay, if you think as a man, okay, and a wife works outside the home, and so she does not have that abundance of time to do all those stuff that we talked about a while ago. So she employs a helper in, and the helper comes in. Here's where the danger lies. Okay, that wife still needs to ensure that she supervises the process that will result in respect to the man. Because if the helper comes in and treats him with more respect and more honor and more value and more attention, you can see how quickly that helper becomes admirable in his eyes. And these are some of the dynamics in the home that cause a good home to just deteriorate very, very fastly. Because she says, why the helper can treat me with love and respect and honor, but you can't. So the wife also has that responsibility to ensure that she supervises that person in carrying out those duties to make her husband look respectful and feel respectful and honored.
So she becomes an integral part
She becomes
of the
an integral part. Exactly.
It's not delegated.
Exactly. Precisely.
And then you also can
precisely
use the person for more common tasks that would not necessarily take away from you serving your husband.
That is correct.
And I think that's very thoughtful.
Very, very.
Yes.
So at my home, most times, and I do this not because I have to, but I do it because I want my son to understand some things, right? So I'd cook every day.
Good job.
They enjoy it, and I there's a little of, well, my son is the one who always give me some real, I don't know if he's a hypocrite sometimes, but he says something, you're the best, and I look forward to preparing creative stuff for him each day, right? And if I should tell myself, I'm a good cooker. I'm a good cook, good chef. Now, but when it comes on, for example, our clothes and stuff, sometimes we have a service that does the clothes. But some clothes, Katie ensures that those don't go out. She does them herself. When the clothes come in, she inspect them and put them away. So it goes in line with Dr. O'Connor saying.
So you still become a part of the process.
If you get this right, you're good. The other area, and Sophie just mentioned that about the element of respect for the man and honor. I use the word respect / honor.
Yes.
Is how we communicate, right? The words we use. The words we use. A man, a man will feel completely disrespected by the words being used and how they're being said. And so even in the time when we disagree, one of the things that women have to be mindful of, that disagree with respect, right? Disagree with respect, because you can really, really hurt the feelings of your husband or your spouse, how with the words that you use. And some women are they are skilled in using some words, right?
Some men too.
I'm dealing with the
this
I am here to break the balance.
I know that men are very skilled in retaliating.
Yeah. But you want to use you want to men always keep that in mind, that one of the needs of men, of the man in your life, is to be respected. And so whatever you say and how you say it, sometimes you may have to just think twice before you open your mouth and form it in such a way that you can communicate the same thing without being disrespectful. Right?
So it goes back to childhood.
Yes.
Right. Remember that some of the common stuff, the cliche that they would use to a young man when he was growing up. Mm-hmm. If he wasn't acting a certain way, they would call him either a girl or a boy. Mm-hmm. And those can be derogatory terms. Now, when you speak to him a certain way as an adult, immediately in your head, we're thinking that, why are you talking to me like a boy?
Right.
Are you talking to me like a girl? You understand what I'm saying?
Talking down.
Down to them. And I think that is one of the major pet peeves.
Yeah, so definitely it is going to be a number one issue for most men, and there's a second need that we want to look at, emotional need that we want to look at when we come back from the break, the whole matter of acceptance. All right, so not only just respect and honor, but there's another big need that a lot of men have. We probably can expand that when we pick up from the break.
Yeah. We take a quick break. It is now 8:30 in the morning. Remember, the numbers to call is 945-9029. That's 945-9029. Or you can send us a WhatsApp at 517-1122. That's 345-517-1122. Or you can head on to our YouTube channel, CIC Media KOI, and leave your messages there. And we'll get them. Let me just say good morning to those who are. I see some folks logged in from Jamaica. Let me say good morning to everyone who is logged into us, and let us subscribe to this channel. All right, 8:31 in the morning. We take one quick break and be back.
Are you looking for real talk on love, marriage, parenting, and relationships? Join us every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. for Family Matters, a brand new show on Praise 87.9 FM. Hosted by Dwayne Uter, alongside Dr. Cheyenne O'Connor, a licensed clinical psychologist and relationship expert. We'll tackle the real issues that families face. Straight talk, expert advice, and live call-ins. Got questions? We've got answers. Tune in and let's build stronger families together. Family Matters, this and every Thursday on Praise 87.9 FM.
So could I sit on the air?
Some
certain professions.
Welcome back to Family Matters. Certain professions, are it's a little more challenging.
Yes.
In a marriage situation, in certain professions.
And there's research for that. Yeah.
There's good reasons.
There are good reasons, because there are certain mannerisms that you have to display on some jobs. All right. That some people tend to carry over into the family, right? And for example, here's an interesting one. I mean, we don't want to deviate from the respect thing. We're going to unpack that a little bit more. But here's an interesting one. It is not unusual that a police officer, for example, who is a detective, all right, will carry that detective skill set over into the marriage.
Yes.
And so you'll hear the spouse say,
investigate.
Don't investigate me. I'm all right. I feel like I'm a thief and you're investigating me. All right. Because you understand? Because of how they
I wonder how the pastor treats his wife
as a sinner. So yeah, it is. That's another very interesting area of research where different professions, they become part of you, right?
Yes.
A teacher to students, right? They become part of you. You go home and you start to speak to your spouse as if it is one of your children in your class. You're reprimanding, we see the same thing with especially uniformed occupations like soldiers, police officers, firemen, nurses. People have that kind of authority in the society. They just come over into that. That's
sometimes challenging to define the role, differentiate the role.
Exactly. So it has a role to play in the domestic life, and from time to time we have to try and say to people, you got to check those behaviors at the gate, right? Because then home is not school, home is not work.
Doctor, could we also ask that men could be a little more understanding though, because sometimes the stress of these jobs can come over.
Yes.
Not willingly.
It is not intentionally. It is subconsciously that they come over, and that's right. So an understanding spouse will say, "Hey, I know you had a hard day at work today or at school today,"
right? Or just say yes, miss.
Or a beautiful way of saying that is that, I don't know if you are conscious of what you just said or how you just said it, but I feel like I'm one of your students in the class. Notice that? I'm not accusing you, I'm just telling you. I statement. I feel like I'm one of your students in the class. Did you intend to make me feel that way? You see how we can communicate that, or the way you say that, I feel like I'm a thief and you're investigating me. It's not a good feeling, or I'm sorry, let me change that. So it can come over subconsciously. But Sophie, you had some other points as it relates to the respect, defining that feeling of respect as a man.
Yes.
And I was interested in, we were talking off air a while ago, the idea of creating space for him. You wanna just go back to that?
Okay, so a lot of men, as they talk about the men cave or man cave, crave this alone time where they just de-stress. It's similar to what an autistic child needs at the end of the day to decompress, okay? So they need that time to just reflect on the day, go through, calm themselves, and then get ready for the family. And it is very important but we as women, we are busy, much ado like Martha, about many things. And so we are craving the support to get the work done, get the homework done for the children and everything before a certain time. And so we can be quite demanding. And wanting the husband to just come through the door, jump in the ship with us and start rowing. We have to understand that from the men's point of view, they need that time.
And that understanding comes right in the subject of respect, because you are honoring, you see the key how it works? You're honoring the spouse, you're respecting their time, right? You're respecting their space. Here's another one. You're respecting their opinion. And that's another big one. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to agree, all right? This is another area where a lot of fights come in many homes, right? The opinion, right? You'll hear it comes up. My spouse does not respect my opinion, okay? Respecting opinion is very important in a relationship, especially for a man, right? Again, remember, a man thinks logically, right? He reasons rationally. So if you ask him for his opinion and then you ignore it, right? Then the first is, why did you ask me in the first place? If you
and they're solution oriented.
And men are solution oriented. So part of respecting the man is to respect their opinion. And so it doesn't mean that you have to agree with it, but at least validate it, right? Yes, at least validate it.
Let them know they're heard and that you appreciate their input.
Yes.
And then communicate how you will use the information that is given.
Precisely.
Because if they think you do nothing, you just ignore, then they will just refrain from sharing in the future.
Exactly.
And be genuine about it.
And
yes.
Be genuine about it. Because if it comes across as you're patronizing, then that is going to be another story.
That's correct. So that's another area, and I think you.
And I just want to balance that. So give him the space without guilt tripping him. And recognize that you also have the power to choose a time for yourself as the partner. So it's not all about, oh, he needs space, he gets his space, and I have to keep going. No. You have the choice to choose when you take a break.
Right.
Balance it so that you don't become so stressed out and start to blame the man for something that's out of his control.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so key, if you're just joining us here on Family Matters, we are unpacking the emotional needs of men. And boy, we have a long list of them. And we only stuck at number one, the respect. And this has so much in it in terms of respecting the person's time, respect their opinion, respect the contribution that they make. And Sophie, you want to add another one to that?
Yes. Don't compare him.
Yeah. Oh boy. You'll get.
That's where the ego gets.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Never compare. And can I just add to that? Whether it's a negative comparison or a positive comparison,
keep it to yourself.
Yeah, keep it to yourself. Keep it close to your heart, right?
Yes.
Never compare him with a past relationship, with a past or ex-partner. That does not go well for any man at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep it to yourself.
So that suggests that you really don't have much regard for him, and even if you try to say, oh, you're a better cook than my last husband, that you may want to use that. You may intend to
just tell him that he's a good cook.
Yeah, right. Just tell him he's a good cook.
Right there.
Never compare. Yeah.
What happens when I'm struggling to find something to compliment and to build up in my spouse? How do I navigate that? Because I'm so angry because I just feel so unsupported.
Yeah.
How do I navigate that?
That's a good question. The answer to that lies in the last part of that statement. Because I am so angry, because I don't feel supported. So the anger overshadows, clouds your mind, and deny you the opportunity to see the other good that is in the person, right?
And there's always,
because that's how you marry him in the first place, right?
Yes.
Right? Because you saw something, in that person that you liked, that was good, that was healthy.
Let's have a flashback.
Yes, right.
Think back to the date nights.
Right, but the current situation can be so severe, right, that it overshadows individuals. And that's why when you come to therapy, we try to force your mind back to, so we will
First
say
love.
something to you. Tell me about the days when things used to be good. And the person will say, I can't even think about anything right now because I am so, and that's exactly what's happening. But yes, if you find yourself in a situation like that, there are good, positive attributes about the individual. Take a time, slow down, and go back there. You'll find good things about it. Don't let the current anger or the current situation cloud your mind.
Let me just say this out there, right? Unless he's just an abuser or predator or whatever it is, he's not out to hurt you.
Yeah. The intention is not.
Don't think that the man is set out to hurt you. It has never been on a man's mind. It can come across that way, but no.
And sadly so, because of how the person was socialized.
Yes.
We have spoken to the effects of trauma and how that can play out negatively in a relationship. So I like that point, Dwayne. It's not that they intend to.
No, they don't set out to hurt.
But it can happen.
It can happen.
And so that's why we're sharing these tips so you know how to navigate them. And of course, if you find that you're blocked, you can't transition and think back to the good times, get professional support.
Yes. Where can I get this professional support? Can you say on Island where?
Okay, we are at the Institute for Essential Care at 59 McLegan Drive.
Yes.
We have male and female clinicians who can support your emotional needs.
Yes.
And we cater to adults and children alike.
You know, one of the things that I'm learning from this program, like how many things that people do in ignorance.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are some women listening this morning and some men listening this morning are understanding, oh, this is why she behaves that way. And she's saying, oh, I need to check this. I need to be more conscious of
my words and my action, my body language.
Yes. And just remember, guys, that you came together because you loved each other.
Yeah. I'd like to probably just add something that comes to my mind again, and it keeps coming over and over and over. And for those of you who've been into therapy, you will note that your therapist will, for some reason, take you back to childhood years, because much of who we are today, how we view things today, are a result of that. So if you come out of a home where your mom and your dad have been quarreling, cussing each other out, using nasty words, and we see who can hurt the most when we are cursing. The child's brain is filled with that kind of behavior. That becomes norm.
Yes.
Right? That becomes norm. So when they're dating or when they're married, they're going to do the very same thing.
Yes.
And they'll think, what's the big deal? There's no big deal. Another person comes out of a completely different environment and, oh no, that's not okay. That's not acceptable. That's being disrespectful. And so this difference in our orientation is key. And so if parents are out there, this is a point where you want to check the way you behave at home. Right? Check the way you behave at home, because the manner in which you behave at home, you are actually training, cultivating, orientating your child to reproduce that behavior down the road. And so they think, and then you say, oh, this is a generational curse. It's not a generational curse. It is the behavior that the child, that is being perpetuated, that the child has learned.
Yes.
All right?
How and I know we're dealing with the challenges that men, the hurts that men go through and all that, but how though can you, as a man or whoever, you grew up in this kind of situation where there was always cussing at home, how can you change that? Or can you change that cycle? Instead of carrying it on, how can you break the cycle for the benefit of your kids?
So help is necessary, because here's why. You yourself don't even know that you're affected until when you are in a relationship and your spouse start to complain. Why are you behaving like that? I just asked you a simple question. Why are you using these words? That's when you begin to realize, okay, something is not okay here, right? And when that happens, it is very unlikely that you by yourself, right, are able to overcome, because this is ingrained inside of you, right? So it's gonna call for. That's why therapy is so important, right? It's gonna call for therapy. It's gonna call for, whether it's individual therapy or group therapy or marriage therapy, that is gonna be helpful to teach you new set of communication skills, right? So you now have an option, because there's some people who don't have an option. That's all they know, right? They know. So people who are,
God forbid that two people from the same kind of background get married together.
Precisely, that's all they know. Children. But when you have an additional set of communication skills, when you say, okay, I don't have to behave in this manner, let me behave this way, all right? And in therapy, they'll teach you how to communicate effectively, right? Emotionally, without hurting the other person. Then that's when now we can see a change in the behavior. And then your children, seeing and hearing this new you, will learn something differently. That's how you break what you call the generational curse.
And somebody may question and ask, why is professional support necessary? If I see that I have a problem, a communication problem, all I have to do is do things differently, just change and be better. But what we know about ourselves as humans is that change takes time and it's hard work, and sometimes we need support to get it done. Remember that by the age of 5, most of who we will be as adults is already formed. And so it's been years, if you're like 40 years old and you're now seeing this deficit, this challenge that you have, it's been years that you have been practicing the same thing over and over.
Muscle
so your
memory.
brain has been wired a particular way. And so it takes brain plasticity, is what we call it, that rewiring of the brain to change your default setting or so to bring about that new way of communicating, new way of behaving, new sets of communication skills that is going to be instrumental in not perpetuating this type of behavior and continuing it in our children and generations to come. So it's very, very important that when we see these, we act on them. We act immediately to get the help we need. And a lot of us can access this through assistance with our insurance providers. A lot of us are not using our benefits to do our mental health care. And we have them just sitting year after year, not being put to good use.
So thank you very much, Sophie. So it's interesting to hear a man who feels respected speak, right? It's one of the if you listen to the men whose spouse and family. We have been talking about spouse, but we have been talking about children respecting. Children respecting their fathers. Yes, on this June month, because it says a lot, and it lets a man feel good, not just when their spouse respect them, but when their children respect them. Conversely, when the children disrespect a father, right? It really affects men. So part of the training at home is not just the spouse respecting their father, but wives. In this time we're talking about father. It is going to be important that wives and mothers ensure that the children respect their dad, right? Because that does something to the honor of the man and the place of the man in the home. I want to say that again. That does a lot to secure the honor and the place of the man in the home, because when he feels respected and he feels honored, then you'll get more out of him. There's no question about it. You'll get more out of it.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's even worse if the child does something to disrespect the father in the presence of the mother.
Yes.
Who kept silent.
Precisely the point. How beautiful it is if a child disrespects his father in the presence of mom, and mom stops him in his track.
Yes.
Say, no. What did I just hear? You can't talk to your dad like that.
Yeah.
Or you no. Imagine the impact of that on dad.
Yeah.
Right? Just think a moment. Imagine the impact of that on dad. As against the child says something that was disrespectful to dad, mom is right there and mom says nothing. And dad will now going to say, imagine you hear that and you don't say a word. And the vice versa before Sophia takes.
And he might not say anything. He might not say anything.
It's true. Huh?
He might not even say
anything.
He
might not even say anything, but he walks away. He walks away and he begins to think of what we call triangulation. Yes. He begins to think that, okay, mom and child are against me, right? See a triangulation of two parties against one. And so that is not a good feeling for father to have in the home. Right?
And if he walks away without saying anything, he's always going to keep that until it's addressed. Until
it is proven otherwise.
Yes.
So it is very, if you're just joining us, we're unpacking this subject of respect here for men as one of their major needs, emotional needs. And we're saying in the home, right, where a child may every now and then say something or does something that appears to be disrespectful to their dad, that it is so important that even before dad open his mouth, it's important for mom to lock that down and to speak up and say, because that gives not only that, but when mom does that, it not only makes father feels good and looks good, but it also says something to the child that the parents are together.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
It is a critical piece of good, effective parenting.
Because children naturally divide and conquer.
Exactly. Children are experts when they divide and conquer. And the same thing is true if a child disrespects mom in the presence of dad. Right? Before mom opens mouth, dad need to walk in and say, "Oh, holy moly, that's not going to go down in this house." Right?
And that should be so even if they don't share the same home, because a lot of homes here are separated.
Yes.
Not because mom and dad are not living together means that they're going to be against each other. Even if you are, don't communicate that to your children. That is so traumatizing and destructive to the child.
And even if you and your wife or your husband are having a disagreement.
Yes.
If you're just having a quarrel and a child disrespects anyone, then the other one needs to get in and say something.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me reiterate the point Sophie just made, because I don't want anybody out there missing. It's such a valid point. All right? Because we have such a high percentage of shared homes for one child, broken family relationship, and the child has to vacillate between the two homes, right? What the point she has just made is that parents in one home want to ensure you do not allow the child to disrespect the other parent,
correct,
even in their absence.
Yes.
Correct.
All right? Yeah, but they maintain that respect for both their mom and their dad. Now, mom may think that dad is not respectful and is not behaving respectful, and whatever you may think about that, right? Whatever name you may want to attach to him, you keep that to yourself, but don't pass that on to the child. You want the child to maintain that respect for that parent, because it's part of making the child growing up healthy.
Yes.
Children, obey your parents in the Lord,
Yep.
for this is right. And parents, whether dad or mom, don't teach your children to disobey their parents.
Yeah, the text says honor your father
Honor.
and your mother. Yep.
Yes.
And that's part of making a man respect. So yeah, as we look at respecting our men and providing that feeling of honor, this is one of several needs. We spent the whole show this morning, and there's one more piece, Sophie, you may want to pick up about that.
Yes, support his vision.
Yep. Yeah, let him be the leader. This is important, right?
Yes.
A man feels respected when a wife can join him in supporting his ideas, his visions, his goals, his plan, rather than saying, you know what, I ain't bringing nothing to you, because every plan I bring to you, you have a problem with it. No, support his vision. He feels respected. Let him be the leader. That's why you choose him as a husband, right? To lead the family. He feels honored, he feels cherished, he feels respected when you can. And by the way, again, he may come up with some crazy plan, a crazy vision, right?
Yes.
And you think it's crazy, but how you deal with it is important. The key word is how. How you deal with it is important. So don't say, hey, that is nonsense. Where you get this foolishness from? No. Don't deflate it. Just ask him, okay, baby, that sounds interesting. Have you check this, or did you check that, or just given and then you say, man, I checked this and this was all right. So we talk about it,
because it might not be crazy,
because it may not be crazy when you get the full thing.
Innovative.
It might be very innovative. Yes.
Very innovative.
But very good point. Respect and share his vision, share his goals, share his aspirations. Let him feel valuable. Don't let him feel like he has no sense. No, let him feel valuable. That will make him feel good. You'll get much more you get a man out of your husband.
Because don't let him feel so convinced about this thing, and you don't think it makes sense.
Right.
He's gonna separate his mind.
Yeah.
And he's gonna go ahead to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And he's gonna do it, and he's gonna be successful.
And if it's not successful, many persons will get hurt in the process.
Yes.
And so you want to be united.
Yes.
So you realize how much skills are needed to make relationship effective. Oh boy, if you're out there and just thinking, I'm going to fall in love with this man and we're going to live happily ever after.
Not so easy.
Yeah. You know those storybooks that end with they live happily ever after. Yes. I've always said nobody went after them to see how happy that was. The story ends right there. But it requires a lot of skill set, a lot of work to make this thing.
I dare say, there's more demand to please a man than to please a woman.
You think so?
That's debatable.
There are those who may challenge you on that one.
There are some very common needs for women that are known by the man who is smart enough. Respect as well, attention, being able to listen.
You're starting a whole new episode.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying being able to listen to her.
Trust, security. You can go on. You can go on.
Yep. But for a man, the obvious thing that every woman thinks, or a lot of women thinks, or society makes it look like a man, as long as there's sex and there's food, is good. And I can tell you, one of the biggest insults to a man is when you need to respect him, or if you did something to respect him and you try to use sex to quiet him.
Yep.
It's one of the biggest disrespect.
Well, we definitely will pick this up next week. We'll pick this up next week at Family Matters. Yes. We'll continue to look at the emotional needs of men and boys, and see what else we have lined up for you as we unpack other needs. There are quite a few other needs that men have. Yes. And hopefully when we're finished, you can make the men in your home happier. Yep, and more fulfilled.
You can live happy
ever after. That is for me for this morning.
All right, thank you so much.
Just before we close out, yes, we have our Emotional Intelligence Camp coming up July 14 to 25, 8:30 to 12:30, Monday to Friday.
Remind the dates again?
July 14 to 25, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 12:30. So this is for our teens, 11 to 13, who wants to be emotionally intelligent, who want to get ready for a productive year at high school. We are teaching them some life skills to make them successful.
Excellent.
So don't want to miss that. 329-6554. And you can reach us at caymanessentialcare.com. Just call the number or log on online and sign up.
All right. I'm sure this. How many students can you?
We can go up to. We don't want it to be too large because it is very practical.
Yes.
So we want like 15 or so 15. Would be a good number. Yes. Right, so you realize the space is limited. So sign up early.
Sign up right now.
Yes.
All right. And again, give us the website.
caymanessentialcare.com.
caymanessentialcare.com.
And then they also will be having, we mentioned this last week, a grief counseling therapy session, group session. And of course, that will also be put on by the Institute for Essential Care. So if you are experiencing any kind of grief in the family, in your personal life, and you sense the need for grief therapy, there'll be a free session on July 1 and July 3. That's July 1 and July 3. That's going to be at 6 p.m. At the Institute for Essential Care. And then we will be running some 6 other group therapy sessions for grief counseling on July 8 and 10, July 15 and 17, July 22nd and 24, and July 29 and 30, right? So all month of July, we'll be doing these group sessions for grief counseling. So because there are a lot of people out there in our community who are experiencing various types of grief, from loss of loved ones, from divorce, from loss of job, from a lot of relationships. And we would like to provide some help to them. So an orientation session will be on July 1 and July 3, free. And then Of course, we'll continue on July 8th and 10, 15 and 17, 22nd and 24th, 29 and 30, all at the Institute for Essential Care. That's going to be 59 McLendon Drive at the Concord Center building. That's, if you don't know where that is, most people don't know that street. It's the one right, everybody knows Price Right? It's right behind Price Right, that street that runs behind Price Right. Right across from DHL. Yes. We're upstairs, Unit 3. So come on over, and online you'll be able to sign up for those grief counseling group sessions. All right?
Thank you so much for coming this morning, guys. It was a pleasure. I look forward to part 2 of men's needs.
Yes, meeting the emotional needs of men.
Yeah. Next week. This has brought us to the end of Right Start for this morning. Coming up right now is going to be Focus on the Family broadcast for this morning. You have a good and godly Thursday.
God is at work and He's calling His people to rise in truth. Truth Rising is a powerful new documentary from Focus on the Family and the Colson Center. See how ordinary Christians choose courage in a culture that needs truth. Watch Truth Rising starting September 5th and find out how you can be a part of the change and become an agent of restoration. Sign up at truthrising.com. That's truthrising.com.
Today on Focus on the Family with Jim Daly, Dr. Gary Chapman will share encouragement for those times when you might have some discord in a relationship.
God does not want you depressed for 3 months because you sinned against your spouse. He wants you to accept His forgiveness, get up, move on, do something good today.
Well, you're going to learn how to do just that today, and thanks for joining us. I'm John Fuller.
John, we always enjoy having Dr. Chapman here in the studio, but today we're featuring a pre-recorded presentation about forgiveness. And this is for everyone who feels stuck trying to mend a relationship, be it with a spouse, a child, a boss, because there are things you can do on your side of the equation. Listen and see.
Dr. Chapman is probably best known for his series of books on the 5 love languages, and this content is from his book, The 5 Apology Languages. Here now, Dr. Gary Chapman speaking at Moody Bible Institute on today's episode of Focus on the Family.
Today, I want to speak on the topic of tearing down walls. There is no question but what many marriages, many families, parent-child relationships, there are long, thick, high walls that exist between the people involved. Now, how do walls get erected in relationships? I would suggest that they are erected one stone at a time. Now, when we got married, we didn't have any walls between us. We were close. Everything was wonderful. We could spend hours together and want more. Oh, when we went home, we wanted to go back. You remember those days? For those of you who are married, can you go back about 3 weeks before you got married? Do you remember how happy you were going to be? Do you remember the dreams you had? You could hardly wait to get married. That's the way I felt. I was 23, and I could hardly wait to be as happy as I was going to be when I met that woman, and we could get together. Whew. But do you remember about 3 weeks after you were married? You guys remember the afternoon you came home and said to her, "Guess what, darling? I'm going to the game on Thursday night with the guys. You know, our team is on top." And do you remember what you gals said? "Going to the game with the guys? You're married." And that's the first time it dawned on him what he's done. And he said, "Well, you don't think I'm going to give up the ball games just because we got married, do you?" And she said, "Well, no, but you're going to leave me at home all weekend." And he said, "Well, you know, none of the guys are going to take their wives." And she said, "Yeah, they don't have wives except George, and he left his." And then you remember what you did, gals? Can't believe you come do this. Only been married 3 weeks. Mama said it would be like this. And then it didn't matter whether he went to the game or stayed home. You had a miserable weekend. You remember that weekend? That little experience was like putting a block in a wall between the two of you. But in those days, you were in love, so you got over it. 3 or 4 weeks down the road, you had almost forgotten that little event, but the block was still there. And then there was another event. You remember that one? And another block, and then another, and then another. And many of your friends now who've been married for 5 years or 15 or 25, many of your friends now have a long wall, high and thick. Only now they don't have any love feelings. All they have now is hostility, hurt, anger, bitterness, or just apathy. Just stay away from each other. Just live and let live. And if you happen to talk to the husband in that marriage about his marriage, and if he opens up at all, I can tell you what he will say about the marriage. He will tell you about the blocks on her side. He will say, you want to know what I live with? Da-da-da-da-da-da. You want to hear another one? Da-da-da-da-da-da. And by the time he gets through telling you about all of his wife's failures, you're going to wonder how anybody could ever live with that woman. And if you ever meet his wife, you will be shocked because she won't look anything like you thought she would look. And if she opens up about the marriage, I can tell you what she will say. She will tell you about the blocks on his side. She will say, you want to know what I live with? On the day the baby was born, he played golf. Want to hear another one? On the day they had my mother's funeral, he went to the softball game. And she will continue to tell you about the blocks on his side. And they both have the idea that the problem in this marriage is the other. And the same thing is true in every family relationship. If you talk to parents about their relationship with their children, most parents have the idea that if my children would just, then things would be better. But if you talk to their children, you will get another story. Because children and young people have the idea that if their parents would just wake up, then things would be different at our house. If my mother would just, if my father would, and most of us spend our energy blaming the other family members for the situation that we're in. Now, when we come to talk about tearing down those walls so that we can begin to rebuild relationships, I want to read you the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, beginning with verse 3. The analogy is different, but the message is very clear. Jesus said, "Why do you behold the speck that is in your wife's eye, but do not consider the beam that is in your own eye? Or how is it that you will say to your husband, 'Let me pull the speck out of your eye,' and behold, there's a beam in your own eye? Thou hypocrite! First, cast the beam out of your own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast the speck out of thy mate's eye." Have you ever read that? I put in the word husband, wife, and mate, okay? It says brother. But the principle applies in a marriage as well as in all other relationships. Jesus said if you want to improve a relationship, the place you start is by getting the beam out of your own eye. To use my analogy, tearing the wall down on your side, not on their side. Now, folks, it's terribly easy for me to say that, but it is not easy to do that. By nature, that's not the way we operate. For example, I often, when couples come to see me, after we've talked a bit, I will say to them, I tell you what I'd like to do. I'd like to give each of you a sheet of paper, and I want to put you in separate rooms for 10 minutes. And I would like for you to make me a list of all the things that are wrong with your spouse, okay? Just tell me all of their failures in this marriage, okay? And they usually are rather eager to do that. Oh, they like that assignment. And they will sit down and they will begin writing, and they will write and write and write and write and write. And when I bring them back at the end of 10 minutes, most of them are still writing when I go get them. In fact, one lady said to me, before she ever left the room, she said, I'll tell you right now, it'll take more paper than that. And I bring them back and I read their list silently. And when I get through reading their list, I say to them, you know, this is good. You all have done a good job. This shows a lot of insight. And it does. It shows all those things that are between the two of them. But I say, before we work on these, I would like for you to go back, and this time, I would like for you to make me a list of all the things that are wrong with you. Just tell me your failures in this marriage, okay? Do you know they will sit down, and most people can think of one right away. They call it their besetting sin, so they write it down, number one. Well, now, I do lose my temper once in a while. Or whatever it is, they'll write it down. But I have seen folks sit there and sit there and sit there trying to think of number two. And seldom has anyone ever come back to my office with more than 4 things on his or her list. 27 things wrong with his wife, but he only has 4 on his list. In fact, one lady came back after 10 minutes. Her paper was blank. And she said, Dr. Chapman, I know you're not going to believe this. She said, but I honestly can't think of a thing I'm doing wrong. And I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. I'd never met a perfect woman before. And after 30 seconds of silence, she said, well, now, if he were here, I know what he would say. And I said, what's that? She said, well, he would say that I'm failing in the sexual area. And again, I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. And 30 seconds later, she said, well, he's probably right about that, but that's all I can think of. Well, I didn't clobber her on the head, but if that's all she could think of, that's pretty big in a marriage. And don't ever forget, God instituted the sexual part of the marriage as well as the rest of it. You see, it is not easy to behold the beam in our own eye. It's much easier to see the things that are wrong with them than to see the things that are wrong with me. So I want to give you 3 steps on how to get the beam out of your eye, or how to tear the wall down on your side. Number 1, identify your own failures. Identify your own failures. We've got to get them on the front burner. Now, how do you do that? I suggest prayer. Prayer. Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24 is a good example. David said, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there's any wicked way in me. That's about as straightforward as you can get. Lord, shine your spotlight on me and show me where I am failing in this relationship. Now, folks, if you will sincerely pray that prayer, get your pencil ready, because God will answer that prayer. He will pour it out to you. Now, He will not give you all of your failures on the same night. That would kill you. But He will give you enough that you can begin to tear the wall down on your side. We've got to first identify, where am I failing in this marriage? And it doesn't take God a long time to get right to the point with you. I mean, He will bring back to you all those verses you have memorized about be ye kind one to another. And He will remind you of what happened last night, and you'll have to say, I was not kind. And He will bring that word to you, tender-hearted, and you will have to say, I was not tender-hearted yesterday. I was harsh and cold and bitter and cruel and mean. And He will bring to you that word, forgiving one another. And you will have to say, oh, God, I have not forgiven them. I bring it up every third day. And He will bring to your mind all the promises that you've made that you never kept. Ooh, I promised to paint the bedroom 4 years ago, still not painted. No wonder the woman's mad. And He'll bring to your mind all the failures that's in your own life. You must first of all identify them. And God is the best source to identify them because God knows the truth about you. And God knows the truth about me. Second step, we confess those things to God. Confession to God. 1 John 1:9 is not a verse simply to be memorized. If we confess our sins, please notice the word is in the plural. If we confess our sins, God is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Now, the word confession, as you know, means literally to agree with. If I hold up this book and I say to you, this is a Bible, and if you come down and look at this book and then you say to me, you know, you're right, that is a Bible. You have confessed that this is a Bible. You have agreed with me. Now, when we confess our sins to God, I think it means we agree with God on at least three things. We agree that it is wrong. Now, by nature, we don't do that. By nature, we excuse our wrongs based on their wrongs. We say such things as, well, how do you expect me to act when she treats me that way? How would you act if your wife treated you that way? And we excuse our sin based on her sin. No. Confession says, Lord, the way I treated her last night is wrong. The way I have ignored her for 3 days is wrong, let alone what she did. That's her problem. But the way I have responded to her is wrong. Confession agrees that it is wrong. Secondly, confession agrees that Christ has paid the penalty. That Christ has paid the penalty. The central theme of the Bible is that on the cross, Christ paid the full penalty for our sins. Now, folks, I must confess to you, I still do not fully understand the cross. But the Bible is very clear. From God's perspective, Christ took our full penalty, our full punishment for our sins. And confession says, Lord, I thank you that Christ has paid for these sins. And thirdly, confession agrees to accept forgiveness. To accept forgiveness. God does not want you depressed for 3 months because you sinned against your spouse. He wants you to accept His forgiveness, get up, move on, do something good today. So confession involves at least those 3 things. There is a third step, and this is where many of us fail. It is found in Acts chapter 24 and verse 16. I believe this is the most powerful verse in the New Testament on mental health. Consequently, it greatly affects marital and family health. Will you listen to these words? Paul is talking about himself. Acts 24:16. In this do I exercise myself. The word exercise is the Greek word gymnazo, from which we get our word gymnasium. Good translation, exercise. Could also be translated discipline. In this do I discipline myself. Now listen carefully. To have always a conscience void of offense toward God and toward men. Paul says, I am committed to living with an empty conscience toward God and toward men. Nothing is more fundamental to mental health, let alone spiritual health, than living with an empty conscience. May I picture for you the conscience as being a 5-gallon container strapped to my back? That's my conscience. And every time I sin against my wife or anyone else, it's like pouring a gallon of liquid into my conscience. And 3 or 4 sins, and my conscience is getting full, and I am getting heavy. And you ask me how I'm doing, and I will likely say, not too well. Because I remember yesterday. I remember last night. I remember what I did or didn't do. I'm not feeling well. My conscience is full and I am heavy. Now, Paul says, I'm committed to living with an empty conscience toward God and toward men. Now, how do we get an empty conscience toward God? By confession to God. We've just talked about it. How do I get an empty conscience toward men? By confession to the person I sinned against. And that's the third step. Confession to the other person. Confession to the other person. If I really want to tear the wall down, it is not enough to seek God's forgiveness. I must seek the forgiveness of the family member against whom I have sinned. So what are we suggesting to people who want to improve family relationships? We are suggesting that the place to start is by tearing the wall down on your side. We are suggesting that people get alone with God and say to God, Lord, where am I failing in this relationship? And as God brings their failures to mind, they confess those things to God and accept God's forgiveness. Then they go to their spouse and they say to them, have you got a few minutes? I've been thinking about us, and I know I've been on your case, but I have realized that you are not all of our problem. In fact, the other night I sat down and asked God to show me where I have been failing you. And He gave me a pretty good list. And if you've got a few minutes, I'd like to read this to you, and I would like to ask you to forgive me. Now, you share that idea with people, which is exactly what Jesus said we're supposed to do. You share that idea with people, and they will ask you questions, such as, one lady said, Dr. Chapman, I understand the principle, but she said, I don't think you quite understand my situation. She said, what if your husband really is the problem? How's that going to help? And I said, well, let's assume for a minute that your husband is 95% of the problem. Now, that only leaves 5% for you. Now, you wouldn't say that you're perfect. Oh, no, she said, no one's perfect. You know, everybody agrees to that. No one's perfect. Well, if we're not perfect, we're imperfect, right? So let's just say you're only 5% imperfect and he's 95. What I'm saying is if you want to improve a relationship, the place for you to start is by tearing the 5% down on your side. The wall is not as thick now because you've removed your side. People will also say, yeah, but if I go do that, how do you think my spouse will respond? And my answer is, I don't know. Maybe your spouse, if you go do that, will say to you, I don't want to hear your lousy list, get out here. Or maybe your spouse will listen to you read your list and say, you forgot a few. Or maybe your spouse will actually forgive you. Who knows? Maybe they will even forgive you. But you are doing the first and most important thing that Jesus taught. You are tearing the wall down on your side. What if they don't forgive you? You've still torn the wall down. All we can ever do with past failures, or at least the best thing we can do with past failures, is to confess them and ask forgiveness. We can't erase them, but we can confess them and request forgiveness of our spouse. Maybe they forgive, maybe they don't forgive. If they forgive, wonderful. Will they come back in 3 weeks and confess their sins? I don't know. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Maybe if you loan them the tape, they'll listen to the tape and maybe they'll do it. Who knows? I don't know what they'll do. But I'm saying that if we're going to tear walls down, we've got to start on our side. Now let's assume for a minute that you do that. And let's assume for a moment that your spouse forgives you. And let's assume that they even come back in 3 weeks and ask you to forgive them. And now the wall is torn down on both sides. May I suggest to you that you will still need to follow this principle as long as you live so that the wall does not get erected again? Let me suggest that in a healthy marriage, we will still have to use this principle of confessing to God and confessing to the other person and asking forgiveness.
What a good place to close today's episode of Focus on the Family with our guest speaker, Dr. Gary Chapman, the author of the book, The 5 Apology Languages.
And we'll hear his conclusion next time. It's so helpful. And you know what? This is a great message for married couples to listen to regularly, maybe once a year, to remind themselves of these valuable principles and to work at keeping their side of the wall torn down, to use Gary's analogy. In fact, the last time we aired this message, we received this note from Kim. She said, "I heard today's message on forgiveness, and it changed the way I was going to talk to my husband about an issue we needed to resolve. I didn't want to hear that my way was wrong, but I'm so glad I did. Thank you, Focus on the Family."
Kind of sounds like she was ready to go in kind of hot and then step back because of the broadcast.
Well, and I'm so glad we could help, and we want to help all the couples we can have a better marriage. Let me just add, this advice is for marriages that are in decent shape. If you're in an abusive situation, we urge you to get to a place of safety for yourself and for your children. Keep that location secret and then pursue counseling for everyone involved.
Well, that's a good point, Jim.
Sadly, this is the case for some marriages. Let me also add, if your marriage is in dire straits, please contact us for information about our Hope Restored 4-day intensives. Many couples who attend Hope Restored have already filed divorce papers, but they find hope and healing. In fact, when we survey couples 2 years after their visit, over 80% say their marriage is doing well. And we are able to do that through support of listeners like you. So thank you for giving. And if you haven't made a donation, let me just ask you to consider how Focus on the Family has impacted your life, and then give as the Lord leads you. The best way to help us is making a monthly pledge. It doesn't have to be a large amount. It's the consistency that really helps us out and evens the budget for the entire year. And when you make a monthly pledge of any amount, we'll send you a copy of Dr. Chapman's book, The 5 Apology Languages, which has a lot more detail than we're able to share on the radio program. And if you can't make a monthly pledge commitment right now, we understand. We'll send the book to you for a one-time gift as well. Just get in touch with us today.
You can reach us when you call 800-A-FAMILY, 800-232-6459, or donate online and request your copy of The 5 Apology Languages. We'll have the link in the show notes. And when you get the book from us here at the ministry, we'll include a free audio download of Dr. Chapman's entire presentation. Next time, more on the forgiveness process from Dr. Gary Chapman.
Folks, when you have sinned, you don't want to see people. You want to do what Adam and Eve did in the garden. Get you a bush and hide behind it and hope God won't see you.
On behalf of Jim Daly and the entire team, thanks for listening to this Focus on the Family podcast. Take a moment, if you will, please, and leave a rating in your podcast app, and then share about this episode with a friend, won't you? I'm John Fuller, inviting you back next time as we once again help you and your family thrive in Christ.
If the fights with your spouse have become unbearable, if you feel like you can't take it anymore, there's still hope. Hope Restored Marriage Intensives have helped thousands of couples like yours. Our biblically based counseling will help you find the root of your problems and face them together. Call us at 1-866-875-2915. We'll talk with you, pray with you, and help you find out which program will work best. That's 1-866-875-2915.
Hi, welcome to Jesus Wins, a daily devotional by Elizabeth Talbot. This whole month of June, we will be exploring the topic, Enjoying His Peace. June 19, His Argument. If then you cannot do even a very little thing, add a single hour to your lifespan, why do you worry about other matters? Luke 12, verse 26. Many have shared with me their techniques to combat worry. Some imagine the worst possible scenario, accept it, and seek to improve on it. Others rely on statistics, calculating the chances of getting hit by lightning or dying in a car crash. And still others use calming resources and breathing exercises. But most people find that these methods are not enough. We are a society of worrywarts in need of facing the root of our anxiety. It has been reported that Kindle's most highlighted Bible text is Philippians 4, verses 6 and 7, a passage that addresses anxiety. showing how our society is struggling with worry. Robinson Meyer, the most popular passages in books, according to Kindle data, TheAtlantic.com. In Luke 12, Jesus addresses our worry and anxiety, mentioning the concept several times. Starting from verse 22, Jesus offers a sequence of arguments against worry. First, those of us who worry about what we will eat and wear have a limited perception of what life is really all about. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Luke 12, verse 23. Jesus draws his second argument from nature, utilizing the style of lesser to greater. If God feeds the ravens and clothes the lilies, how much more will he take care of us? Thirdly, Jesus points out the futility and unproductiveness of anxiety, highlighting that we can't add an hour to our lifespan by worrying. If we can't do this very little thing through worrying, why do we worry about other matters? The culmination of Jesus' arguments is an alternate way of life to the anxiety-driven struggle to meet one's own needs, and it is based on a simple and powerful awareness. Your Father knows that you need these things. Luke 12, verse 30. He is in control. He is graceful to provide. He knows what we need, and He is more than willing to give these things to us. With this understanding, our focus changes to seeking His kingdom, and all these things will be added unto us. God is willing and able to take care of us. We are, thus, set free from self-protecting concerns and can now focus our energies on the gospel propagation. Yes, Jesus sets us free from fear, worry, and anxiety. Woo-hoo!
Today's podcast was excerpted from the book Jesus Wins, published by Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you would like to purchase your own printed copy, you can do so by calling 1-800-765-6955 or by going to AdventistBookCenter.com or Jesus101.tv. From all of us at Jesus 101, thanks for listening, and remember, Jesus wins!
The Adventist Book and Nutrition Center is pleased to present our now and buried treasure brands of natural supplements. These highly acclaimed products range from general health, botanicals and herbal products, probiotics, digestive enzymes, amino acids, minerals, vitamins, nutritional oils, and omega-3 and fish oils. Additionally, our products include heart health supplements, immune system boosters, and male and female health support. Call us today at 345-640-2647. That's 345-640-2647. You could also reach us at 345-949-2647. That's 345-949-2647. We look forward to seeing you from 9 to 5 on Monday through Thursday and from 9 to 3 on Fridays at 209 Walkers Road, Georgetown.
Well, it's a new day, it's a new start. So many praises rising from my heart. Lord, you've been so good to me. You woke me up today and I lift my hands to you in gratitude, and I just smile. Starting my day with you, there's nothing else I'd rather do. 'Cause you give me the right start. Oh, you make me smile, oh Lord. Oh, you make me smile. new start, so many praises rising from my heart. Lord, you've been so good to me. You woke me up today and I lift my hands to you in gratitude, and I just smile. Starting my day with you, there's nothing else I'd rather do, 'cause you give me